Welcome in, everyone. Scoop is back with our lovely Thursday update, and his Queensland boys lost, so that's good. And a lot of our New South Wales players played well, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next year. It definitely seemed a lot more free-flowing than the normal Origin game, doesn't it?
Yeah, the first half I couldn't believe how many awesome attacking plays there were, and then the
Mm.
second half it turned around into a massive grind. It was quite entertaining to watch, and some of the New South Wales guys on debut really stood up, and a couple of those under fire silenced the doubters. I think Cook and Teddy had pretty good games. Stephen Crichton showed everybody why he should be an Origin player. Bradman Best and Colin Tungy had absolute stormers. So well done by the Blues all around.
Yeah, you imagine that all of them, like Latrell will be back next year, likely, right? If he's not injured, but Colin Matangi probably keeps his spot, wouldn't he?
I think so. He had a good enough game, and he's the young up and comer. Tyson Frizzell was moved on for him. So in all
Mm.
honesty, he could be there for a good many years. I'll be uh, I'll be interested to see what happens with centers because there's just adding more and more and more onto the pile. Poor old Campbell Graham might never get a shot.
Oh yeah, that's very sad, isn't it? He may have to get a crack on the wing or something if it ever comes up. But really, guys, out of the Origin game last night, very limited on the injury front. We saw Josh Adokar go off just a little bit early, which allowed Gutho to play three minutes. Yay, Gutho! Imagine that was his debut. Yeah, get on there, mate.
Game winning catch right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm glad he did something at least. But Adokar with a little hamstring strain. It sounds like very minor, but even the most minor ones, very, very unlikely to play this week coming up, backing up. It would be silly to do that because he's very much at a high chance of injury. So, really, the only beneficiary of that one is going to be Blake Wilson. He's just a tad under 300k, and we'll get into him a little bit shortly. He doesn't have dual position, obviously a very low break even, but you'd say it probably seems like a bit of a kind of pick, wouldn't he, at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, if you're really looking for somebody, he's there. But if you want cash, you probably want those cheap as possible for somebody that's playing this week. So I can see why people are going back to a Talau after he's finally had a good score and two easy games coming up.
Yeah, for sure. I just sort of pictured you when you said cash, just like flashing your cash for everyone there. That'd have been great. I'm sure you're good enough with the technology for that. All right, let's head down to the forwards end. So from Damien Cook onwards, we have 55 minutes from him. So it doesn't really matter. Obviously, they have a bye. But that just allowed Reece Robson to play lower minutes at 33. And I personally still own him, and there's obviously a good chunk of people that still do. Does this bode well, do you think, for him playing the full 80 minutes for the Cowboys this week?
Um, when does he play? Does he play early? He played Saturday
This
5:30.
Saturday.
So look, I think that's enough time to get him back to playing a full 80. Look, he's shown that he can back up and do really well. I think that lower minute game instead of an 80-minute bruising when there were injuries the other time is going to be easily enough for him to back up, similar to somebody like Fafita.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't even realize that he played. I thought he was on there for a long time, and he played really low minutes, which we'll get to in a sec. But yeah, that Robson one. I think the big thing we need to look at, guys, is all of the teams that are currently in contention for the top eight or trying to push towards the top four. Any of those teams there, if they've got, they're really good players. You see the Cowboys actually, top eight and actually named all of his players in the starting side, and they have a really, really tough matchup against Manly, who they're very much, I think they're ninth and 10th on the ladder. So it's a very important game. And that's something where I'm looking at Robson and going, okay, well, Harry Grant on the other side, he played some big minutes, I think 60 or just above there. Is it worth trading Robson to Grant this week, or could I get one more out of him and then do it then? So that I suppose with him playing the lower minutes in this game, you could do it without probably missing out too much. Because if he was going to play the 60 odd minutes, you just go, nah, just rip the band-aid and get rid of him now. That's just something I was just thinking about last night, obviously with my team, and it's going to fit a lot of your teams as well. Isaiah Yeo with the 54 minutes off the interchange bench. So he had the 26 off and then came straight on and played the rest. That's obviously a few less minutes than he has been playing, close to the full 80 in the first two Origins. And what are your thoughts on him as a target going forward? This week, obviously, is he fine for you to pick up, would you say? And then, do you think that the the Panthers will actually rest their players? He has already missed one game.
Yeah, I've was really hot on Yo to start with, and now I've kind of gone a bit lukewarm. I think that he should back up, but I would order your trade so that the dude you're getting out to buy Isaiah Yo plays as late as possible. So you've got mail as to whether he is going to play in case he's a late out. But yeah, I've started looking at it this way. I've got Payne Haas, for example, and he's going to be out this week, and then also misses a week and run home.
Yep.
Whereas Yo misses neither. And I was very keen to straight swap them, but then I thought you're trading him in. That's one trade, and then around 27, Panthers very, very regularly rest their stars so that they're warm and ready for the finals. So, in all honesty, he might not miss that much less than Haas. Haas has a higher ceiling, and you're going to use 2 trades on him. So, I mean, if you're swimming with trades and you really need a mid this week, he could be a very, very good point of difference to bring home some head-to-heads. But especially for overall players, it's not as slam dunk as you'd think.
Yeah, well, the video I did earlier in the week was just talking about all the guys that are averaging near that 60 mark. When you've got Horsburgh, you've got Jack DeBell and these types of guys, it's obviously more, the reason we're thinking about it now is mainly for this week because a lot of us need that mid, right? So, yeah, maybe don't rush into it. It's going to be a good trade in. There's never a bad time to bring in the second top average in a position. But, yeah, that's probably all I'd say there. The only other one here, we've got Liam Martin. So a few people will be interested in Liam. He did play the 80 this week, so I doubt he gets big minutes again for Panthers coming up here. So maybe he's if you have an injury to a mid-range guy and you need a straight swap in round 21, he could be a guy to look at as well, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are interested in him. Let's go to the Maroons there. And yeah, Fafita's the interesting one, isn't it? Playing 33 minutes. I actually didn't notice him go off early because he was in so much in that first 20-odd minutes. And then obviously wasn't from there. So 33 minutes for him, that just guarantees that we can all get him in pretty safely, right?
Yeah, similar to Yo, I would order your trade so that you can pull out if he does as well. But I mean, he's much more likely to back up and have a barnstormer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he played, 50-odd minutes, I believe? Was it in game 2, or did he play the 30-odd again?
I think game 1, we thought he played 30, but the site messed up, and then we played 50. I can't remember what he played in game 2.
Yeah, game 1 was big. I think game 1 was 65, and then he was only off for the head knock, and then, it might have been 50 or something, but then he came out and played the full 80 in backing up. So I think he's played less in this one. He should be fine to go. That's for sure. You look at Pat Carrigan there. He's obviously a guy that people own as well. 55 minutes for him. Probably about normal. He didn't have to go the full extension like Ruben Cotter did, playing the 80 and winning the Wally Lewis medal. But Paddy's on the extended bench. I do think there's a good chance that he does rest this weekend. But I suppose we're just waiting for late mail if you do own him.
Yeah, I think so. He's been named in the reserves, and given it's the Bulldogs and the Broncos are second on the ladder, it is tending towards a risky rest. So definitely keep an eye on it as long as you can.
If he does rest, are you just holding him? Or is he the same deal as Payne Haas?
I would say probably yes. Probably more of a sell than Haas because he's just not quite at the top.
Okay.
You've got at least 3, maybe 4 guys who'll average you close to 65 maybe. And he's going to be a guy that will be a strong keeper, but not an absolutely elite guy. So it's probably worth shifting him to somebody like a David Fafita, who is the clear, far and away best edge.
Yep, definitely. Tino looks like he'll back up, playing 46 minutes. He seemed fine. As I said, very, very limited on anyone carrying any sort of injury or any head knock or anything like that, which is good. Harry Grant, the 62 minutes. So this is a slight worry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance he only plays about, 60 minutes this week, maybe even slightly less. He doesn't need to play monster minutes in order for Melbourne to do well. If he has a short burst of his best and then goes off when the Storm are up. Because, look, the Roosters have been a good team in the past, but this year they haven't put it together. If the Storm are well up 53 minutes into the game, he could come off and give Wishart a go.
Yeah, I suppose in that in that sense, he could come on and get some good attacking stats in that time. He looked to run last night. He didn't score super well fantasy wise, but yeah, he looked to get involved and everything, and that's what we want to see from him going forward, right? As soon as he gets 50 plus run meters, he seems to just get offloads, get tackle breaks, score tries, and score really well. But we know he's the clear best option, which we'll just show his stats in a second. And then Mo Fodawaker is probably the finisher as well. But obviously Horsburgh the 21 minutes, he looked good out there, and no injuries for him. He gets the rest this week, so he'll be fine and ready to go for round 21. But Mo Fodawaker, for anyone looking for a mid this week, with the 25 minutes he played, he should be fine to back up. What are your thoughts on him? He's obviously just over 700k, scoring a little bit better than what he's priced at this point as an average. Is he worth it, or is it?
He's kind of gone back to being a little bit interesting, because we had the mid-season, well, most of the early season, mid-season, where Jolliffe was out with a pec tear, and he absolutely carved up. He was averaging like 65 minutes or something ridiculous, and really good scores of like 50s, high 40s and 60s. And now Jolliffe's hurt his hand and is out again for another month or so.
Yeah.
So in all honesty, Fodawaker could be a really fantastic option for the next couple of weeks. Maybe he's not tip-top elites come the head-to-head grand finals or the absolute run home, but it is a positive in his favour.
Yeah, for a guy that's going to average in the low to mid-50s there, at least he's going to be in your 17, so yeah, there's definitely no worry about that. And I think for him, with no buys left, you just hold him for the rest of the year, and I think he'd definitely do a great job for your side. If you are strapped for a little bit of cash, your team value's not crazy high, and you want to use some cash elsewhere to go to a bigger gun, then he's going to be a good play. And there's obviously another guy in Maxi King that we'll speak about in a sec. But yeah, that was a fun game to go through. Let's speak about Harry there, because he's obviously the clear best hooker, and I went through the hooking position. It's pretty dire at the moment, especially with Robson and Cook not living up to the heights either. But let's see a couple of the games where he's had that just drop in minutes there. He's got a 50 in 74, a 55 in 72, and a 39 in 72 there, and a 5 minutes off he got for 47. So it's clearly not his ideal if he gets that little bit of an early rest. When he plays that full 80s, he has a 77, 76, 70, these types of scores here. He's obviously going to be the one to get, right? Is it fine to leave him out this week, or do you just get him in? If he gets a 45, so be it.
I can definitely see the case for waiting. If you've got somebody, it might be a bit specific, but if you've got somebody that you're waiting to see how they go, or somebody that you want to loop before selling, I think that's a good case to do that and then get Grant next week. You absolutely will want Grant, but yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of going Robson to Grant, I don't know whether that makes sense points-wise this week.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Whereas you look at he's 750k. If you're trying to get Fafita as well, who's more likely to absolutely dominate this week? And it's probably Fafita, right? So yeah, that's probably more the main priority. But yeah, Harry, obviously one we all want on our side, and that number of 50%, the top 1,000, whatever it was in the top 5,000, that's going to be really high. It should be closer to 100, that's for sure, come end of the season. Let's talk about Nelson while we're here at 596. So he's obviously gone up just a tick there, after getting up to 670, back down to the low 500s, and he's back up to 596 now. On that edge there, scoring really well, right? There's no doubting that. But with Eli Katoa likely to come back in the next few weeks, do we think that it's more of like a couple week rental, and then you might have to move him on because he could go back to the middle and be a 40 to 50 kind of guy?
It's a delicate situation. I think there's only a very few set of circumstances I would actually buy him, and more of a guy that I would just be really happy that I'm owning and holding, because there's a good chance he could get up to 650, 700k. Then you can sideways swap him to, say, Latrell Mitchell in like round 23 or something along those lines. But yeah, he's not going to be there forever. Eliesa Katoa's, I think, supposed to come back in about 2-3 weeks, so he could get you a couple more 60s, but then he's not somebody you'll want to be playing in your gun 17 probably when he moves back to the middle rotation. So he is a short rental, if at all, and probably only if you have a fair few trades up your sleeve.
Yeah, so just keep getting extended, the news on Eli Katoa, and he has scored tries the last 2 games and played in the 70s minutes. So, does the try scoring keep up? Does those minutes keep up, or does he go back to sort of that 63 minute game or 58-minute game that he played a couple of weeks ago off the interchange, and then named in the prop position. But we know that usually means he gets moved around there for sure. Mate, just a little bit of advice to people on sort of some trade strategy this week, or a strategy that you would employ for the last 8 weeks. Any sort of tips there?
I would look to I'd look at how many trades I have and then see how efficiently you can use them. So I wouldn't be trying to trade in too many guys like Nelson, because that's going to cost you an extra trade to get them out later. So guys that you can hold for the whole season are going to be very valuable. And the tip-top elite guys, especially if they're slightly discounted, like perhaps Fafita or a Grant, maybe not Grant this week, but those sort of guys can be extremely valuable for your team. And then you sort of just set, and I think wait until an injury happens, and then you can straight swap to somebody else who you were really hoping to get, like maybe a Cleary in a couple of weeks using somebody else to cash down even more. But that's the sort of strategy I'd be employing. I'd be looking to go really hard this week if you have saved any trades at all, and then just sit and wait for the injuries and straight swap them.
Yep, I like that. Yeah, because that's the thing. You're not going to be able to get them all, right? But then an injury will come, a suspension will come, and you can straight swap, and you get to own them for a few weeks or whatever that can be there for sure. So yeah, you'd really be pushing for points in this one. So getting in those top guns and trying to get a really strong 17 as quickly as you can the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, as I was saying before we started recording, I think this is the easiest buy round in fantasy, but the hardest week of fantasy in fantasy, because this is probably the last week you can make really bulk ranks when some people are struggling, if you can trade really hard. And then it's just going to be the grind for the run home. And most of the teams are going to be set by then and not going to change until injuries happen or buys happen. So I think that if you can afford to, it's good to go big this week to claw back at that. But just make sure you're not going down from 8 trades to 4 trades and saying, oh no, I've also got plans to get this guy out and this guy out, because you're going to end up in a hole about round 24.
Yeah, that's right. And hopefully you did put a bit of bank together last week after getting a Tyrone Munro or something like that, to allow you to get to the guns, because that would be still be the strategy, guys, is just to go for those top guns, and then maybe one cheapie can come in there. There's not many this week. Maybe you have to wait until next week if Munro's still available or something like that to be able to go down, or you do have to go to a Blake Wilson or something like that this week. But that's still the strategy, guys. Just get obviously the guns in, because there don't have that many trades left. You probably want to only use 4 or 5 to get as many good players as possible, and then you want to use those last 3 or 4 just to do those straight swaps that we were talking about. So Cam Munster's one of those guys that we want to discuss here at 718. We got him and Daly Cherry Evans as the boxing match this week as who's going to be the best scorer. What we look at with Munster is probably a little bit more inconsistency. Would you agree with that compared to Daly?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the guy that will win you a head-to-head matchup or score you 100. He's already scored 100 earlier this year. But yeah, he does have like a 30 or a 29 in him, as we saw against the Dolphins. So he won't get you that solid score all the time, whereas Daly Cherry Evans with his hands on the ball and massive kick meters probably will. But Munster will get you a 90 more often than Cherry Evans will.
He also hasn't played as many games this year either. So he's got the same amount of 30s and 40s. It just doesn't have as many big games. He's got the 78 in round 15. He's got the 100 in round 6. So you could look at that and go, okay, well, DC actually has more of an upside because he has multiple games now with 70 plus, a couple of 90s in there. And then he has his consistency as well. But what we know with Munster is he can explode, right? So he's definitely probably, I'd say, the slightly riskier play, but probably has that just a little bit more boom if he can turn the form around, because he's averaged better than this, and so has DCA. They've both been in the 60s the last few years. So this is a little bit of a drop for Cam. Probably want to do a matchup base, right? I had a look at their draw, and he's got Roosters and Knights the next 2 weeks, and it could really pay dividends if you go for him just on those 2 matchups, right?
Yeah, Munster is definitely someone that can boom for you with those 2 slightly softer matches. One other thing that's interesting to note between the both of them is that Munster and the Storm always rev up for the run home. And I think the last 2 years he's averaged like a ridiculous numbers, like high 60s. I think that included the fullback games from last year, which sort of skewed it a little bit. But I mean, they always come home very strong. Usually the Roosters do too, but not this year. But also Daly Cherry Evans averages about 5 points more when he doesn't play with Turbo because he's so much more involved, has to do everything, gets his hand on the ball. So in all honesty, there's not really a lot splitting these two. And at low 700s, discounted for what we know they can produce, both of them are fantastic options. I personally might be going absolutely huge and getting both of them.
Oh my, here we go. All right, Scoops on the charge after last week, eh? Love that, love that. Actually, we didn't get up your team, but wasn't your best week last week, right after a bit of a charge the 2 weeks before?
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed actually. The pods that have been doing pretty well for me up until then absolutely just flopped. I think I got 668 with 13 and got beaten by someone who had 11 and they got 730. So
yeah, it happens, eh?
Yeah, not the most amazing week, but the fact that I had planned and saved cash for this round means I could be making 4 trades, still have 7 left, and bringing in 3 big guns. So
okay.
I really like that strategy, and I'll just sit on that for a little while.
So you need a mid, don't you? Oh no, you got Madison. Okay, sweet. You don't have to worry about that, which is cool.
I've got Maddox, so I can just slot him there.
Yeah, that's the killer in my side this week, is that I want to do certain things, like, but I have to bring in a mid, so yeah, a little bit painful on that front. The Payne Hastings annoying for you, but yeah, you didn't lose that many ranks, right? Which is cool. So, down to 173, which is nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure. The private group, we've got a few guys coming ahead of us at the moment. We've got Will, who's moved into second after a couple of really good weeks. I did our private call together a few weeks ago, and he's just absolutely cannon past me. So I gave him too much good advice. And then we've got Sam, who's come into fourth as well. So he's splitting us at third and fifth. So not too far apart. It's fun up there in the top. So okay, so how many trades did you end up saving? Did you end up saving one or?
I had 3, so I had 11 before this week.
Okay, cool.
And currently, my plans are to make 4 and go Buller, Simpkin, Johnston, and Preston out to DC, Harrison, Graham, Munster, and David Fafita.
Wow. Okay, I like that. That should get you some good ranks this week. That's for sure. Let's move on to Maxi King, 520k. So he's our mid-range, the only mid-range guy I think I would target this week, and the reason is, guys, he was carrying an injury for a good portion of this middle part of the season. If you're looking at his scores up top, he had a low of 45 in his first 6 games, first 7 games there, and then picked up a couple of 41s there, and that's when he had his injury in that round 8 game, where he picked up that 41. He missed round 9, and then from there he's been playing the majority of, pretty much every game, but there's been some low minutes and stuff in there, and he has gone back there to a 65-minute game in a 63. So that's where we're looking at him as being a good option this week, as someone who could plug that midsection, but could get potentially closer back to those good scores. He had a couple of 60s in there, offset with some mid-40s, and if he does get a mid-40 score, he's still going to make some money, and he'll do a job right now in our top 17.
Yeah, he's a strange one. I'm not super enthusiastic on him just because he doesn't feel like a final 17 player, and that's a lot of money. But I mean, we do have a mid issue this week. So given that he'll probably be a reasonably solid 18th man, and you're using him this week for that sort of 45 points, he's a pretty decent option. Nelson is a bit more expensive and shorter term, and Max King's that safety net.
Yeah, he does have that buy in round 23, but by that point we're likely not going to be needing him at that stage. Like we'll have Hopgood there, we've got Tohu, we've got the Tarpanese, the Horsburghs, the Jack de Bellens, Payne Haas. There's so many of those guys, so that week will be fine. And yeah, you can use him as a looper near the end, I suppose, as like your 17th man or something like that. So it's definitely an okay option, as you said. Not nothing to get too excited about, but definitely someone there to. Yeah, just to mention anyway. He's definitely a good chance of getting to my side, just with how it's going to fit to get for feeder and stuff like that in. Speaking about Dan Gagai, someone that you were very interested in. Just looking at the casualty ward for NRL Physio, and he's saying that there could be a little bit of an issue with pushing off and acceleration with Gags. He's the clear best centre though, so can you look past that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because probably the two centres you'd want to get in if you were unhappy with the ones you have would be Dane Gagai and Valentine Holmes. And Holmes has a late bye, and Gagai has a foot injury that might keep him low for a couple of weeks. He does have the Tigers this week. Otherwise, I probably would just say pass on him until he's fully fit. But yeah, I mean, both of those could be very, very good options for head-to-head in particular to win your matchup over somebody like a Lemuelu who came slightly good last week, but I mean, he's still not setting the world on fire.
Yeah, my thing with Gags is it sounds like he'd had it for a few weeks before, but even if he did do it in that last game, he still had 8 tackle breaks and an offload. Yes, he had some errors in there, but he still ran for the same amount of meters, and it's a bit of a risk, obviously, but you're looking at the next bunch of games of Tigers, Melbourne, Canberra, Dolphins, Dogs. So that's a pretty good 5-round stretch, and he could definitely, as you said, win you some head-to-head matchups, or could get you into he could definitely be the best centre over the home stretch, that's for sure. Let's just have a little chat about Isaac Tungo as well at 609k as a low break even, and I actually think he's come back better. Well, he looks better anyway since he's returned from injury. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really love the look of him. The only issue I have against him really is that he sort of took on a bigger scoring role as soon as Cleary went down. So I'm wondering if that's because they're a little bit more left side dominant with Luai taking more control. But I mean, it's hard to wait given his break even's like just about single digits.
Yeah.
So if you think that adding Cleary back in just adds to the overall attack, and even if it doesn't mean as much ball down his side as more quality ball, he's definitely a strong option. He's a very, very good centre, and he's somebody you do want to own in super coach, and in fantasy, probably a good shout as well.
Yeah, you obviously look at the tries in there, and can that keep up? But potentially could. He's got 5 in the last 4. If he's that guy and he's that player, he's got Dolphins and Dogs the next few weeks. So now right this second would be the time to get him, that's for sure. Let's go to Harrison Graham then at 269. He's played 2 games. He seems to have a solid PPM of 0.7. If he's able to get some decent minutes, he's probably the cash down of the week, isn't he? Even though he's in a hooking position that we probably don't need.
Yeah, he's a bit of an unusual one. He's definitely a risk. My thoughts as somebody who is planning on bringing him in is that we don't know how much Marshall King is actually going to play. So we originally thought when he injured his shoulder for the second time, he's out for the year. And then all of a sudden he was back and now he's gone again. So he could be managed week to week, and Harrison Graham might not be there all the time, but he could play 2 or 3 or 4 games in the run home and not be the greatest backup. I mean, although you'd take it in the weeks that he does play, but he will just sit there as a possible red dot and a possible scorer. So, I mean, at 269k, to use that cash to get some guns elsewhere, I don't mind it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's potential for some games. It may also be one, and then because they have the bye next week, Jerry Marshall King could come back okay. But there's also chat that it sounds like his shoulder is gone and he will need surgery. So it's like, well, when do you just go and get the surgery? Like, do you do it now, or do you actually wait? Like, because I'd say at this point they're probably unlikely to make the 8. Blake Wilson is next, at 297, as we said. A potential option this week as a cash down with a low break even. Probably doesn't matter too much, because if you bring in someone like this, it's very likely that he just sticks in your team for the rest of the year. The big thing with him is that he is likely to be a red dot, isn't he, in the next bunch of weeks. But he also could keep his spot if he keeps playing well, right?
Yeah, well, he's sort of sat there, and the Josh Adokar injury does help him. So there's a good chance he'll play as many games as Harrison Graham, for example, but in the back end of the year, there's every chance he'll just sit there as a high 300s or like low 400s red dot. And that's not the worst, but I mean, it's not particularly exciting. And given the fact that he's 297k instead of like a little bit cheaper like Harrison Graham, or really, really cheap, you could use like that 30, 40, 50, 60k extra in a different cash down to get a proper gun instead of like an almost gun, for example.
That's fair. Yeah, that extra 70k or whatever it is. Yeah, could be very important. Let's just have a quick chat about Tedesco. And watching him last night, he looked back to some of his best footy, which was good. And obviously, finally being in a team that played well, he was obviously a good part of that. It bodes well, I think, for the rest of the year. They have like an okay run. Tough game, easier game, higher point scoring game. I think he's going to be one of those top 3 guys that we want at the end of the season. Do you agree with that? I do own him, obviously, and a little bit biased with that, but I know a lot of people are completely off him. What are your thoughts?
Before last night, I probably had him down about 6th.
Wow.
But I would be interesting. I think I would push him up a couple of places now. I think there are guys who will score better than him, and he's not going to be the absolute clear top option. But after showing what he showed in the last little while, and especially last night, I think there is reason to say he is a good bring-in as a top 3 wing fullback for the run home.
And people say, like, yes, he was scoring a bunch of tries, and that's why he was scoring well. But when you're one of the best players in the game, you're gonna set up tries, you're gonna score tries, right? So, especially as a fullback, you're the guy that's going to get involved. So, the big issue really is just the team, because if the team's flying, he's going to be involved in tries each and every week. But yeah, I just think 650k, he should be able to get you close to a 50. And name a few guys that can hit a 50 average at wing fullback. It's probably Garrick, it's probably Latrell, but he's not there. I don't know, Drinkwater. That's the 3, right?
Yeah, the only one might be Mars Hugh, but I mean, he needs tries, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I suppose he's done it long enough this year. I can't really push back on him either, but he's in a team that's going to be a bit hit and miss as well. And if is he going to actually jump on the bus again this week? We spoke about.
Hopefully, he tons up versus the Tigers.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They've got that nice matchup there. We basically spoke about Isaiah Yeo. The consistency is going to be there. He has a fairly high break even as well this week after his 40. So up to you on that one. We've got Val Tafade. So he ends up being dropped. Obviously, defensive issues is where he still lacks at the moment. His ability to score points in fantasy is great, and he's made us all. I had him a couple of weeks now, and he's got a couple of decent scores for us. But it sounds like if Hammer doesn't back up, he'll play in that centre position, but longer term, probably not going to be there. So if that 423k, I think you can use it as a trade option if you'd like. Do you have him in the same boat?
Yeah, I'd tend towards holding if you can get another game out of him this week. But yeah, if Hammer does back up, there is a much stronger trade influence to get him out. So he's done a pretty good job. He's been very, very stop-start, but finally managed to show what all the people who jumped on early were hoping for. And I mean, you probably take 193k in 10 rounds.
Yeah, that's for those good. That grabbed him straight away. Yeah. No, that's very cool. Yeah, I know if Bunch got him in 17 and that had him at 312, so you made 111k, got 3 good scores. I got him 339, so yeah, two quick price rises was cool, and obviously, some important scoring. So yeah, I think either way, as you said, it's going to be good. Let's Reece Robson, we kind of spoke about there. The last bunch of weeks hasn't been super exciting, right? He had the 71 and 55, and you're like, oh, maybe he's back, but he was pretty poor before that. And then he's gone 38-36. One with 80 minutes, one in 67. It's obviously coincided with the Cowboys starting to play pretty well also, and he hasn't had to do much. With Drinkwater kind of running the show there and did. And do you think that that's a worry this year that they're playing? He's playing a little bit more of the bunny style and just getting good ball out to some of these guys. He's still making his runs, but it's not all going through him.
Yeah, I think that is somewhat of a worry. The fact that Drinkwater has 16 try assists in the last 7 weeks and Reece Robson only has 1 probably tells you what you need to know about the style of attack. So, look, I would probably hold this week for the score over Harry Grant, but then I would make the switch after that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll see what happens with backups for that decision myself. Dave Fafita, we've got him in there as obviously someone to talk about, but 852k, the scores that he pops up are just ridiculous. They're all 60s and 70s and a couple of 80s there in the his last 4 games as well. So yeah, just ridiculous. He's the best scorer in his position. Get him in your side if you can. number one priority, that's for sure, especially playing low minutes. Jake Averillo is another one of those lower guys that people have been asking me about at 360k, the dual position, break evens, middling. He's not anything low there, but scores for him, he obviously has a couple of big ones in the centres, but back at fullback last week is what we want to look at, and that was obviously against a Bunny side that were very low on really, really strong players. Obviously, with all the Origin guys out, the next 2 weeks are Broncos and Penrith. I can see Averillo going pretty low. What do you think?
I don't like buying outside backs from non-top 8 teams at this time of year, let alone guys that aren't really cheaps.
Yeah.
We've seen Averillo a little bit at fullback in the past, and he really needs to try to get him over sort of a 30, 35. And, well, what did he have on the weekend? He had a 38-point effort with 200 meters and 2 try assists. He's not the style of offloading, attacking, tackle-breaking player that will get you those really massive scores. He has to rely on other stuff. So I don't particularly like him as an option. No. I'd probably look elsewhere.
Yeah, if you got him last week, it's fine, but not this week. Probably just Madison to finish. If you're sitting there with not a lot of Eels players, then he's definitely someone that is a good option, right? A 663, it's the lowest we've got him for a long time. He only has to hit a 50 average and he makes 50k, but he should be a more than 50 kind of average guy, right? And has the dual position, mid and edge.
Yeah, I think Madison should be good. I don't know if he'll be really good now that the Eels have their full pack back. And, well, they've named 2 guys who can play on the edge on the bench. And that makes me think he's just going to be that middle role rather than sort of splitting middle and edge, a bit like Bateman, which would probably be the most ideal for his scores. So he'd need to go back to that really good PPM. But, I mean, we know he can do that. We saw him tear up at Magic Round and got something like 250 meters in 50 minutes or something ridiculous like that. So he definitely can do a job. And at his price with his dual, if you only have maybe 1 or 2 Eels like a Penasini and not much else, or a Hopgood and not much else, probably can jump on.
Yeah, well, you look at his interchange games last year and they were 50, 55 minutes and he was going 61. He'd go 65 with the try. Yes, there'd be a 43 in there, but there's a 71 in 55 minutes. So he's got the up and down between 70 and 45 there pretty comfortably. So, yeah, you're not really going to complain with the guy that has 70 upside every 3rd week or something like that in that one. So, yeah, I think that's it, mate. We've got 8 rounds to go. It's very, very exciting this time of year. Obviously, with everyone getting back involved, I'm seeing the views go back up this week now that people have trades again. So it's going to be a very exciting round. And what's the tip? Do we reckon there's going to be 1100s, or will we save that for next week?
I reckon, look, there'll be 1100s, but I don't know if it'll be us.
Yeah, okay.
I think that when we've got the full squads backing up next week, we will start to see those really big scores that we become accustomed to in the run home.
Yeah, we're missing JDB and Horsburgh and these kind of guys right along with people backing up. So, yeah, as you said, this is a big week to kind of catch up on teams. And then I'd say that last 3 rounds as well, if you have a few trades extra in the bank, you'll be able to dominate those last 3 rounds as well. So good luck this week, guys, and thanks for watching. That was a really fun video.